A lot of companies feel pretty safe. They're wrapped in this warm blanket of compliance certificates. They've passed all their audits. But then you just take a quick look at the news, and what do you see? Massive data breaches at these supposedly secure organizations. It tells a completely different story, and it really makes you wonder, is what we call security just an illusion?
So here's what we're going to do in this explainer. We're going to break this whole problem down and look at a new way forward. First, we'll dive into this compliance illusion. Then we'll see exactly why the old model is failing so badly. From there, we'll introduce a really big shift from GRC to a new paradigm called GRA. Check out the operating system that makes it all tick. And finally, talk about what it really means to govern with true confidence.
All right, let's kick things off with a pretty provocative idea, the compliance illusion. This whole concept basically challenges the very foundation of how most organizations even measure their own security.
To really get a handle on this illusion, let's just think about a few pretty high-profile events that really shook the corporate world. What's the one common thread that connects all these massive failures?
Well, in every single one of these catastrophic events, from the SolarWinds supply chain disaster to the Colonial Pipeline ransomware attack and the more recent Snowflake data breach, the organizations involved were all considered compliant. They had the right pieces of paper, they'd passed their audits, sometimes literally right before a disaster struck. And this, right here, gets to the heart of the problem. There is a huge, dangerous gap between looking secure on paper and actually being resilient in practice. See, compliance tells you what you did yesterday. It says next to nothing about your ability to handle an attack tomorrow. This quote just nails it perfectly. Compliance artifacts, things like certificates and audit reports, they create a sense of order, but they are absolutely not proof of capability. They can't tell you if your systems are actually going to work when they're under serious stress. So, if compliance isn't the whole answer, then we really have to ask, why? And that question brings us right to the root of the problem, the traditional model of governance, risk, and compliance, or, as you've probably heard it, GRC. Now, for anyone who might not be familiar with it, GRC has been the standard for about 2 decades. It's the framework companies use to manage rules, identify risks, and just make sure they're following regulations. And to be fair, it did professionalize governance, and that was a good thing. But here's the catch. GRC was built for a much simpler, more stable world, and today its flaws are really showing. First off, it's always looking backward. It's retrospective. It also creates these functional silos, where your IT, security, and risk teams are all working in their own little worlds, creating these huge blind spots. It's also busy measuring activities, like, did we install the patches? Instead of measuring outcomes, like, can we actually recover from an attack? And critically, it almost always overlooks the single biggest factor of all, an organization's culture. This contrast is really the key to the whole thing. Compliance, well, it provides reassurance. It's that comfortable feeling you get when you've checked all the boxes. It looks backward and it asks, did we follow the rules? But assurance, that delivers confidence, a conviction that's actually based on hard evidence. It looks forward and it asks a much more important question. Will our systems actually work when we need them most? And that brings us to a real turning point. It's time to evolve. And that evolution leads us to a new mandate for leadership, making the shift from GRC to GRA. GRA stands for Governance, Resilience, and Assurance. Now, this isn't about totally throwing out GRC. It's about building on it. The focus shifts from just managing risk to actively building resilience, and from simply documenting compliance to demonstrating real evidence-based assurance. Let's look at this side by side. With GRC, the focus is on risk, the proof is compliance, and the goal is just reassurance. But with GRA, the focus becomes resilience, the proof is assurance, and the goal is genuine confidence. This is a fundamental shift, moving from a passive, backward-looking model to an active, forward-looking one. Okay, so this all sounds good in theory, right? But how do we make this shift practical? It can't just be an idea. Well, that brings us to the engine that actually powers the GRA model, the Assurance Operating System, known as the DVMS. The Digital Value Management System, or DVMS, is really the connective tissue of the organization. Think of it as an overlay that directly links the board's high-level strategic goals to what's actually happening on the ground in operations. It ensures that the intent of governance gets translated into provable capability. I love this analogy. Frameworks like NIST or ISO are absolutely essential. They're the maps. But the DVMS is the system that makes sure you actually take the journey. It doesn't replace the map, it makes that map actionable, turning alignment into real, tangible assurance. Now, at the heart of the DVMS is a simple but really powerful model called CPD. It reframes everything an organization does into 3 key areas. First, you create value by designing services to be resilient from day one. Second, you protect that value with active defenses that can handle today's threats. And third, you deliver that value by having proven plans to maintain continuity and uphold your promises to customers, even when things go completely wrong. It's a holistic view that connects security directly to the core mission of the business. Which brings us to our final section, the ultimate benefit of this whole shift. What does it actually mean to govern with confidence? And what's the real strategic payoff? The GRC model, it's really focused on managing activities, checking the boxes, filling out the reports. And while that has some value, it's limited. The GRA model, powered by DVMS, is all about proving capability. And the strategic value here is just exponentially higher. Why? Because it builds real trust and it actually prepares the organization for the future. This isn't just about avoiding disaster, it's about building a more robust, more trustworthy, and ultimately more competitive business. So the key takeaway here is that we absolutely have to move beyond the false comfort of compliance. The real goal is the hard-won confidence that comes from assurance, from knowing, with evidence, that your organization is not just compliant, but truly capable. And that leaves us with one final, critical question for every leader out there to consider. Take a hard, honest look at your own organization. Are you governing by assumption, just hoping that your compliance certificates will protect you? Or are you governing by evidence, with actual proof that you are ready for whatever comes next?